78881 الإعلان منشور كمان في مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي WFP, AfriLabs وSeed Grow Company Limited.
Your voice matters more than you know. Every time you call iRadio, every time you share your perspective, every time you give your opinion on air, you are practicing freedom of speech. You are protecting media freedom. You are keeping independent radio alive. You are actively participating in the governance process. Many may not realize it, but those calls, comments, and conversations are not just talk. They are acts of public participation, the heartbeat of a free and open society. By speaking up, you help hold leaders accountable, raise community issues, and shape national conversations. Without your voice, the microphone goes silent. Keep calling, keep talking, because when the people speak, democracy breathes.
Looking for the perfect radio partner?
Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, good morning. This is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. The government of Western Equatorial State has launched its HIV and AIDS strategic plan aimed at achieving zero new infections by the year 2030. The chairperson of the National Constitutional Review Commission has reiterated that South Sudan's permanent constitution-making process must be profoundly participatory as mandated by the 2022 Act governing the process. And elsewhere, at least 8 people have been killed and 400 injured as thousands took to the streets in a day of protest across Kenya against President William Ruto's government. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Lasuba Memo, and now the news in detail. The government of Western Equatorial State has launched its HIV and AIDS strategic plan aimed at achieving zero new HIV infections by the year 2030. The launch held in Yambio on Wednesday was conducted under the theme using continuous quality improvement to accelerate Western Equatorial State's progress in HIV epidemic control. Speaking during the event, Dr. Kayipa Geoffrey, representing implementing partners working with AFNET, called on development actors to now shift more attention to Western Equatoria, which continues to record high HIV prevalence rates. Sharing past data, he said Western Equatoria recorded 10,773 people living with HIV in 2020 and 10,520 in 2021, a trend that continued through 2024. He added that despite efforts, the numbers remain concerning as they are still compiling data for 2025 figures due to be released in December. The chairperson of the State HIV and AIDS Commission, Mr. Henry Kenyi, emphasized the urgency of reaching the global target of ending HIV by 2030. Kenyi called on the state government to demonstrate leadership by supporting the Ministry of Health and its partners in implementing the plan. On his part, the acting governor of Western Equatorial State, Daniel Badagbu, called on the people to adopt a local approach rooted in ownership and responsibility. The acting governor assured citizens that all the needed support is available while urging the communities to take charge of their health. The chairperson of the National Constitutional Review Commission has reiterated that South Sudan's permanent constitution-making process must be profoundly participatory as mandated by the 2022 Act governing the process. Dr. Riang Yerzor made these remarks during the opening of the ongoing 3-day workshop focusing on the role of journalists in the permanent constitution-making process in South Sudan. He pointed out that the media's role is indispensable in the current constitution-making process. Dr. Riang stated that Article 6.13 of the 2018 Revitalized Agreement on the Resolution of the Conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, along with Sections 12 and 34 of the Constitution-Making Process Act 2022. He explained that the public involvement is secured through extensive civic education and public consultations, ensuring that citizens' views are reflected and form the fundamental basis for drafting the constitutional texts. The workshop aims to prepare journalists to responsibly report on this critical national undertaking. Dr. Jor added that last month, that insecurity and insufficient resources had caused delays in the nationwide civic education and public consultations necessary for the process. Despite these challenges, the National Constitutional Review Commission is pushing forward, recognizing the media as a pivotal bridge between the constitutional process and the South Sudanese populace. The Director General at the National Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has called for a collective effort to diversify South Sudan's economy by investing in agriculture alongside oil production. He made the remarks following the release of a report by the African Development Bank on the economic status of South Sudan, which projects a growth rate of 12.1% by 2026, depending on stability in Sudan, which provides the pipeline for exporting South Sudan's oil. According to the report, South Sudan remains one of the most natural resource-dependent economies on the continent, with oil accounting for over 50% of the gross domestic product, about 80% of exports, and more than 90% of government revenue. This heavy reliance on oil has hampered efforts to diversify the economy and expand the tax base. Dr. George Leju Lugor, who heads the Directorate of Agricultural Production and Extension Services, noted that the country's economic growth has been marked by volatility due to both internal and external shocks. He said that South Sudan should not rely solely on oil, but instead enhance domestic production and then strengthen the agricultural economy to keep pace with regional development. This is iRadio Morning News. And now to the international scene. At least 8 people have been killed and 400 injured as thousands took to the streets in a day of protest across Kenya against President William Ruto's government. Police clashed with protesters in the capital Nairobi and other cities exactly a year on from the wave of deadly anti-government demonstrations that hit the nation in 2024. Many of those demonstrating chanted "Ruto must go" and waved branches as a symbol of peaceful opposition to his rule. The government banned live TV and radio coverage of the protest, but its decree was overturned by the High Court in the capital, Nairobi. Finally, the U.S. head of the CIA has said Sunday's strike severely damaged Iran's nuclear facilities and set them back years, diverging from a leaked intelligence report that angered President Donald Trump by downplaying the raid's impact. John Radcliffe, the U.S. spy agent's director, said key sites had been destroyed, though he stopped short of declaring that Iran's nuclear program had been eliminated outright. It comes a day after a leaked preliminary assessment from a Pentagon intelligence agency suggested core components of Iran's nuclear program remain intact after the U.S. bombings. President Trump again maintained the raid had obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. This is iRadio Morning News. And to end this bulletin, here's a recap of the headlines. The government of Western Equatoria State has launched its HIV and AIDS strategic plan aimed at achieving zero new HIV infections by the year 2030. The chairperson of the National Constitutional Review Commission has reiterated that South Sudan's permanent constitution-making process must be profoundly participatory as mandated by the 2022 Act governing the process. At least 8 people have been killed and 400 injured as thousands took to the streets in a day of protest across Kenya against President William Ruto's government. That's the end of iRadio Morning News. If there is a story or an event you'd like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message at +211 925 287 It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 8 o'clock. I'm Lasuba Memo. Thanks for listening.